At first glance, this looks like a creepy, realistic doll, or someone who simply just put on a mask. However, both of these assumptions would be wrong. Forensic art, or in this specific case, police sketches or body composites, have been an early practice of forensic work and is still used till this day. These images you see on screen are all meant to showcase a sketch of a suspect or victim. While some of these sketches are able to help identify the person, a ton of them are still cold cases and go unidentified for many years. Now there are so many sketches that have appeared all over the internet, and due to their unsettling and eerie look they have to them, they have become one of the prime examples of the Uncanny Valley. This specific sketch was of an unidentified woman at the time, who was known as Christy Crystal Creek. The mystery surrounding the deaths of this young woman began on September 9, 1985 in Missoula, Montana. A local hunter was tracking bears in a hillside area near Crystal Creek, Montana, when he came across a disturbing discovery. Human skeletal remains were found on the ground with 2.32 caliber bullets lodged in the skull, which were shot from close range. The authorities will be quickly notified about the discovery, but after investigators developed their research, there was still no answers to who the remains belonged to. Based on the examinations at the time, it was believed that she was between the ages of 20 to 35 years old, around 4'10 to 5'2 in height, weighed between 90 to 100 pounds, and believed to have light brown, thin and wavy hair. Some of her distinguishing features included staining on the right side of her teeth, which indicated that she was a smoker. Her prominent cheekbones also stood out. There was also no pieces of clothing or personal belongings at the crime scene, which just meant that the killer left her naked on the scene to die. However, this wouldn't just be the first remains to be found in the area. Just 3 miles away, another body in a state of decomposition was discovered on December 24, 1984 by a wildlife photographer just 9 months before the Christy Crystal Creek remains. This was given the name of the Debbie Deer Creek. Similar to the other remains, multiple bullets were lodged in the skull and no signs of any belongings were present. This all seemed it was executed by the same person. So now you might be wondering, who committed all these disturbing crimes? Well, from the evidence surrounding these cases, a man named Wayne Nance was the main culprit. Throughout his life, it was believed that Wayne had committed at least 6 homicides from 1974 to 1986, but it's been suggested that he may have killed many more undiscovered victims. In his early life, Wayne was described as a troubled teen, and for some reason, he had an obsession with satanic symbolism and he worshipped the devil. By his 30s, it just seemed that his strange behaviors were something from the past. He was described by his employers and acquaintances as just an average guy, but this would be proven to be completely false. Wayne had many jobs throughout his life, but during this time period, he was a truck driver. One of his duties involved him helping people move their belongings in and out of the house, which just gave him access to people's homes, and this is when he would engage in some of his crimes. Now, going back to the Debbie Deer Creek victim, the woman was last seen with Wayne. From what's known, she was traveling through Texas in August of 1984. As a means of transportation, she often hitchhiked with other truck drivers. All was going well for her until one day she got into an argument with one of the drivers, and he simply just tossed her out of there. Unfortunately, this happened in Missoula, and one of the other truck drivers saw this and picked her up. And unfortunately for her, this man happened to be Wayne Nance. For the next several months they would be together, but then one day, the woman just disappeared. People started to notice this and question him, but Wayne explained that she left him months prior. But this was later proven wrong, as literally 3 months later, her skeletal remains were found in the forest. A further investigation was done in his house, and as expected, a series of photo booth pictures of them were both discovered, and a strand of her hair was found in his truck. It took investigators until 2006 through DNA profiling to figure out her identity, in which she was identified as Marcella Sherry Marcy Bachman. At this point, Wayne Nance was still the main suspect for the other crimes, and the Christy Crystal Creek victim was next to be fully investigated. The woman's DNA profile was tracked by Ostrom Incorporated just 3 years ago in 2021, and she was finally identified as Janet Lee Lucas. According to her family, she was last seen by them during the summer of 1983 in Sand Point, Idaho. It was during this time that she began hitchhiking with her then boyfriend, as they later broke up. This is where things become a little confusing, as there's no real explanation as to how Janet and Wayne met. It's been speculated that while she was hitchhiking through different states, she stopped at a nightclub in Missoula. Wayne had worked a couple jobs during the 1980s, and he was a bouncer for the nightclub she attended. He then sparked up a conversation with her and they became mutuals. It was then theorized that Wayne would just drive her around in his truck, and he would eventually lead her to Crystal Creek to murder her. Like I said, this is all speculation and no one knows what happened. So with all of that out of the way, you might start questioning, alright, so was he ever caught and was he ever charged for his actions? For his crimes, he was actually never arrested, tried, or convicted. And this is because he was killed in a home invasion in 1986 as he attempted to murder husband and wife Douglas and Christian Wells. While only 6 victims were confirmed to have been murdered by Wayne Nance, it's truly saddening to know that he likely ended the lives of many others without anyone's notice. Part of the beauty of art is seeing pieces of artwork that give us different emotional responses. It's rare to see things part of the uncanny valley that give the viewers a sense of optimism, as the main purpose of it is to create that feeling of unsettledness. A great example is this image of what seems to be like some statue. For some, their first time seeing this figure was from a short film series known as The Oldest View by YouTuber Kane Pixels. As the third video in the series suggests, the rolling giant is shown for the first time. This, however, wouldn't be the first time for others seeing this figure. The actual name of it is a Reverchon giant, and it is a piece of art that's meant to showcase Julien Reverchon, who is a French botanist. Creator behind the sculptor, Kevin Obregon, made the giant for an art festival honoring important figures in West Dallas's history, and was part of a 3-day event named the Bridge-O-Rama to celebrate the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge opening. Kevin Obregon began the construction of the giant on January 31st, 2012, when he made numerous posts on his Facebook page regarding the creation, as he shared details consisting of the head's dimensions and materials used. Just 2 weeks later, more updates were made on the giant's face, such as it having lips, a nose, movable eyes, and decorative markings that were later scrapped. Something that's unique and is eye-catching about the sculpture are its flower hands, which has been assumed to symbolize Julien Reverchon's occupation as a botanist and his love for nature. Images and footage from the parade are still widely available, and after the parade, Kevin Obregon eventually moved the giant to a local mall named Valley View Mall. Valley View was developed between 1965 and 1973 and was doing great during the 1980s, but as time went on, just a decade later, financial difficulties began to arise. By the mid-2000s, Valley View looked like your typical beatdown mall that was somehow still up and running. Eventually in 2019, city officials declared the demolition of Valley View Mall after requests were made years prior. It was a 4-year project in which it was finally torn down in May 2023. This also meant that the Reverchon giant was dismantled. However, it's been alleged that some of the dismantled parts went missing, and as of today, nothing has been resurfaced. The story of Dr. Carl Tanzler is a bit of a strange one. Actually, no, that's an understatement. Just listen to this. Carl Tanzler was a radiology technologist at the Marine Hospital Service in Key West, Florida. He grew up in Germany, and while there's not too much surrounding his childhood, there was one instance that likely changed his entire life. According to him, he would commonly have strange dreams and visions, which many just assumed that it was normal and that he was a kid and he just had a wild imagination. But let's just say this specific vision was different. He dreamt about a dead ancestor named Countess Anna Constantia von Kosel. This also wasn't a one-time thing, as he would dream about her basically daily. She was described as an exotic dark-haired woman, but to him, she was the love of his life. Later on in his life, Carl would marry a woman and they would have 2 kids together. Due to him wanting to have a better life, his family and himself decided to move to the States, in which they stayed at Zephyr Hills, Florida. But he would abandon his family just a year later, as he got a job as a radiology technician in a US Marine Hospital in Key West, Florida. It should also be mentioned that when he moved to the United States and submitted his documents for his citizenship, he wrote down that his official name was Carl Tanzler von Kosel, instead of just Carl Tanzler. And if you remember, that was the last name of the woman he had visions with, and he never told his wife about this either. While working, many other co-workers explained that Carl was a quiet guy and often kept to himself. After working there for nearly 3 years, Carl would find his true love. On April 22nd, 1930, a 22-year-old woman named Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos was brought into the hospital to do a couple tests as she wasn't feeling too well. Elena was diagnosed with tuberculosis. This heavily discouraged Carl because, well, for one, it was considered a fatal disease at the time, but more importantly to him, Elena was the love of his life, and he tried everything to keep her alive. So with the family's consent, he decided that he was gonna be the doctor to save her. Unfortunately, he didn't have the requirements to actually be a doctor, so basically all the remedies and practices he was gonna use on her wouldn't be the most effective since he technically didn't know what he was doing. Not only that, but he would start to give her gifts such as jewelry and clothing to basically win her love. He even confessed to her while this was happening, but she made it clear that she wasn't interested at all and that she just wanted to be saved. Unfortunately, Elena would pass away on October 25th, 1931, and this took a huge toll on everyone, especially Carl Tanzler. To show his true feelings, Carl ended up paying for the entire funeral, and with her family's permission, he paid for an above-ground mausoleum. However, they weren't aware that he actually had a key to the mausoleum. As a way to cope with his grief, he visited her every night for 2 years straight just to talk to her. Eventually, one night he had another dream, and as explained, she told him that she loved him and that he should take her out of his grave so that they could be romantic partners. This was his calling, I guess. And so the next night he went to her grave, dug her out, and brought her back to his home. Shortly after, Carl was fired from his job for unforeseen reasons, and suspicion arose as to many wondered what happened and why he stopped visiting her. Those who knew him started to question his behavior heavily because even though he was a quiet dude and often kept to himself, it just seemed that he was so deeply obsessed with this woman. The local residents started to wonder why he was calmly buying women's clothing and perfume, why he was always pushing a lifelike doll on his wagon, and why he started to show affection to the doll. Well, as expected, the doll people were talking about was Elena's corpse. He attached the bones together with piano wire and fitted the face with glass eyes. The skin was wrapped with silk, soaked in cloth, and used plasters of Paris to reconstruct the face. Coat hangers, wires, and rags were used to retain her body shape. Even when her hair began to fall out, he made a wig and stapled it to her head. The smell of decay also had to be dealt with, so he used a whole ton of perfume, flowers, disinfectants, and other substances to preserve the body. He did this for 7 years, but then he was confronted by Elena's sister, Florinda. There was rumors going around the area that Carl was sleeping with the corpse and engaging in sexual activity. By October 1940, Florinda said enough was enough, and she notified the authorities and demanded that they do a search in his house, in which Carl would then be arrested and detained. The general public wanted him charged, but that technically couldn't be done without an examination, since it was also believed that Carl had some sort of a mental disorder. So for extra precaution, he was psychiatrically examined and found to be mentally competent to stand trial and to be charged. For his actions, he was charged with wantonly and maliciously destroying and removing a body without authorization. This was later changed, however, as his case was dropped as the statute of limitations for the crime had expired. It should also be stated that when this all occurred, there was a lot of people who actually felt compassion for Carl. They believed that he was just an eccentric lover and that his love for her was actually admiring. I mean, I don't know about that, but let's continue on. Elena's body was then removed from Carl's house and her family reburied her in a different part of the cemetery to prevent him from digging it up again. 4 years after the trial, Carl moved to Pasco County, Florida. Just to let you guys know, his strange obsession didn't end off there. Even though he couldn't have her corpse, he created a life-size doll of her and lived with it until his death on July 3rd, 1952. This image or still is from a musical horror short film written and directed by Cecilia Condit. The film shows off the two main characters, Sharon and Janice, shopping at a mall while they are being followed and stalked by a creepy looking man in a mask named Arthur. At the first store, they're both shopping for a perfume, and Janice makes a comment stating that the perfume smells like her mother's crazy sister Kate, who once put her wet poodle in a microwave, and with Sharon asks if she did it to fry it up and then eat the poodle. But then Janice clarifies that Kate did it to dry the dog, but instead it exploded and both of them were found dead. They then leave the store, and while this is happening, Sharon starts to sing and we learn a bit more of the story surrounding the film. Sharon expresses her concern and wonders how she always seems to meet the strangest men. She gives an example when she kissed a man who happens to also eat other women. She then questions how some people turn into strange ones. We are then introduced to another scene that involves them both parting ways after coming home from the mall. Arthur can once again be seen in the background watching Sharon enter her house. Arthur then approaches her front door and removes his mask for the first time, and strangely enough, he appears to be a normal man. As Sharon goes to answer the door, she notices who the man is and calls Janice for backup. Janice proceeds to shoot him, but this doesn't seem to help at all since Arthur then uses a brick to destroy one of the windows. He enters the house and immediately hunts down Sharon in a room and traps her there. Arthur gives her two options, whether that allow him to eat her immediately or to slowly dismember her as a sign of love. This wouldn't be his first time doing this as he holds her at knife point and explains that he's done this 6 other times, but before Arthur gets the chance to make Sharon her 7th victim, Janice saves the day by coming out of nowhere and shooting him. The film ends off with them dismembering him and making soup from his body parts. They both eat his remaining parts and even give some to their dog. After eating, Arthur's bones are thrown in the garbage as a garbage truck driver comes and collects the bags. At first this short film creeped out many, but as soon as it became popular in 2015 and onwards, a lot of people enjoyed it. As described by many, it gives the impression of a comedic thriller and some weird core vibes. Also, I can't even lie, the music is pretty good in this film.
I bite at the hand that feeds me, slap at the face that eats me, some kind of animal cannibal. Animal cannibal.
If you made it to this point of the video, I just want to thank you so much for staying and for watching. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. While doing research, I wanted to, I knew I wanted to make a disturbing images video and where they came from. I know these tend to be my more popular videos and I'm gonna always keep making them. I just wanted to do a little bit of a twist since I tend to do more, I don't know if they're meme images because some of them are based on true events, so I don't really want to call it that. But it's more like internet culture and internet mystery type images. I've always been interested in the uncanny valley. You know, seeing those images for the first time always spooked me out, and I have so many more that I could have included in this video, but I kind of just wanted to test things out, you know. But yeah, I'm gonna get it off now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you watching have a great rest of your day. But before you leave, don't leave yet. I just want to let you know I truly mean that. I truly hope you watching, yes, you, the person I'm pointing at right now, have a great rest of your day. Alright, I'm gonna go now, but I'll see you guys next time. See you guys.